And here we are. Welcome on board, everyone. It is great to have you guys joining us. My name is Daniel Correa. I'm the Director of Learning and Development at Peak Leap. And today I have the pleasure of having Jonathan Pritchard joining us, where we're going to talk about public speaking. And but before we start, and we have an hour, so and I have a lot of questions already, Jonathan. When people saw that you were going to join us, the questions started to come in. But I'll try my best to get all of them through. But if there's any questions that is not being answered today, Jonathan and I will make sure that you get your answers by email as soon as we
Beautiful.
can.
You
So
got it.
I want to start by, first of all, thanking you, Jonathan, for joining us. But a fun fact here, Jonathan and I met, I would say, a year ago. And actually, Jonathan was a discovery call for a marketing agency that Jonathan used to work on, from or for. And he was so good that we signed up. They got the business. So I was like, that guy was good. What he, throughout the call was like, okay. Then the opportunity came for us to collaborate. And now Jonathan is one of the instructors here at Peak Leap. He has a couple of very interesting workshops that he delivers to our clients. And I said, we need to have a open masterclass that you can speak to the broader audience, because there is a lot that people can benefit from what Jonathan has to say. So without further ado, and Jonathan, I'll let you tell these people a little bit about your background because it's fascinating, but I won't do justice if I just replicate it. So, welcome on board and thank you for joining us.
Hey, man. Happy to be here and share the gospel of public speaking. Um, yeah, when people look at my experience and they go, oh, well, it's easy for you because look at what you've done. And we got to go all the way back to junior high. Like, I grew up a very shy kid and I'm super introverted. I'm still super introverted. Like, when I'm around a lot of people, sure, I can act as if I'm outgoing. But when I get home, I'm just like, whew, that was a lot. I'm not all jazzed up. So I'm not extroverted. I don't like being around a lot of people. Like, this is great. It's just me and a camera in a room. Wonderful. So I realized though, even in junior high, that the popular kids were the extroverts, the loud people. It seemed to be that the people who got what they wanted were able to stand up and speak up for themselves.
Mhm.
And if I never spoke up for what I wanted, I wasn't going to get it. So it would behoove me to learn how to speak up for what I want. So in high school, I took debate class and it was fantastic. It was speech and debate. So we'd have to give presentations. And then there's a National Forensics League here in America, and there are different kinds of debate. There's extemporaneous speaking, where you get a topic and then you've got 5 minutes to prepare a 3 minute presentation, and then you give it. There's humorous interpretation, where you try to make the judge laugh. The thing that I really liked was Lincoln Douglas debate, which is all about morals and should you do something, not how you're going to do it. That's policy debate,
Mhm.
but should we even do this in the first place? So there would be a resolution resolved. The death penalty should be repealed. And then, okay, at a tournament, you get assigned to debate for the resolution or against the resolution. And then the next debate, a couple minutes after that one, you might be on the other side. So you've got to be able to argue for and against the resolution. And it would be you and your debate opponent and the judge having it out. So it's about 30-45 minutes. But what it forced me to be able to do is take the pictures in my head and then translate them into words. Because before that, it would take me a couple of days to have an idea or say, "Oh, if I could just draw a picture for you." Like, spoiler alert, I've got an art degree. Like that's what my degree is in in painting. I paint portraits. I don't I don't write well. I didn't speak well at the time, that kind of thing. So I did that practically every Saturday for the next 3 years. So I maxed out my membership in the National Forensics League. Like you got points. If you won, if you lost, you got a certain amount of points. I maxed out the number of points that I could get. And I still kept going. Then in college, I kept doing competitive debate in college. And through the whole time, I'm also a performer. When I was 13 years old, I learned how to juggle pins. That's what those green things are. And then, if you know how to juggle those, you could set them on fire, and now you know how to juggle fire. So I did that when I was 13. Hammered nails up my nose when I was 15 years old. Learned how to eat fire when I was 18. Learned some magic tricks that make it look like you could read minds. And then that's the path I went down. So after graduating high school and college, then I graduate college. My first job is at a magic shop at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, where I did 15,000 live shows for people from all over the world. So that was fantastic training for public speaking. And then from there, went on tour for myself to do a whole 70-minute theater show. Took me around the world. I've been to Istanbul, South Korea, Mexico, performed at the Link Casino in Vegas, went out for America's Got Talent nearly a decade ago now. Went out for Penn and Teller Foolish. My segment never made it to air. No clue why. Maybe I messed up and I didn't know it. I don't know. But I've been out for these very high pressure, high visibility kinds of things where for America's Got Talent, I made it all the way through to being in front of the judges, in front of a live audience of 3,000 people in that theater with who knows how many cameras around. And then you got to walk out on stage and look like you want to be there.
And
Like just
perform.
it's yeah, that's a real weird dynamic to be in. So I do have a lot of experience with public speaking of all sorts, whether it's uh, almost a one-on-one presentation where it was me talking to the CEO and be like, you should give me a lot of money, or 5,000 people in front of millions of people later. It's all the same thing. So I love helping introverts and shy people appreciate that you're already a public speaker. Everybody who goes, "Oh, I don't need public speaker training. I'm shy." Like, you do, because you're already talking to people. Even if you don't like it, you're still talking to people. And if you're a manager, talking to employees, you're a manager, talking to the C-suite, you've got to persuade. And that is the whole role of what public speaking is. So we can talk about all sorts of stuff. So that's why I always like it when you've got questions, because it's like, I've been doing this 30 plus years. I don't even remember what I forgot about it. So what do you want to know? And I've almost forgotten how terrifying it can be to people. But I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a real weird situation for folks who aren't used to public speaking and getting freaked out about it. Oh, I not everybody has had 15,000 opportunities to get over that. So, I like to share whatever I can to help people be more effective, be more persuasive, and be less freaked out at every speaking opportunity.
And absolutely, and that's why it's fascinating. But I like you to tell the story because it makes, it gives credit where credit is due. And but one of the things that fascinated me when we first spoke about public speaking, the fact that you mentioned how introverted you are, where, because I think you came a long way, but you still, like, as you always say, that you're still introverted, because most people think that speaking in front of an audience, as you said, it can be one, two, three, 100, 200, 3,000 people. It's only for people that were born with the natural talent. They like to be in front of people. They feel comfortable, or they're most comfortable in front of people. And it's not always true. Now, having conversations with you, I find that quite the opposite. Sometimes
Mhm.
most people speaking in front of an audience are not naturally, uh, let's say, talented or born with that talent that make it easier for them, right?
Yeah. And weirdly, sometimes the more extroverted you are, the less qualified you are as a speaker because they think, "I love this." And they think that that enthusiasm is enough to be a good communicator. But there are plenty of people who want to be in front of a crowd who shouldn't be in front of a crowd. They haven't learned the skills yet of how to deliver a message. And I've had this conversation with my entertainer friends who are extroverts. You nailed it that most are introverts. There are a bunch that are extroverts, but a majority are introverts because we're like, well, we're fascinated by this thing. Oh, I guess I have to go share it with an audience if I want to get paid for it. Okay. But there are folks that are extroverted, and there is a give and take of energy with the performer, with the speaker, and the audience, especially in the entertainment world. Like if you've
Mm.
gone to a rock concert and the audience is, right? So there is, if the audience gives, then it's easier for the performer and oh, it's wonderful. But as a speaker, as a communicator, if you're extroverted, you feed on that energy and you want the audience to give you all of that praise and adoration and validation and all those things you didn't get growing up as a kid. Okay, I get it. You got to fill that hole inside of you with the audience. Okay, cool. But the audience's job isn't to make you feel special. That means you're an energy vampire trying
Mm.
to take from the audience, and that's not cool in my book. So, as a speaker, your job is to facilitate the audience to understand the topic that you're there to talk about. And if they give you nothing, who cares? That's a you problem, not a them problem. And during the COVID years, when all the speakers, all the performers, all the entertainers had to go online, and
Mhm.
then we're used to being in front of a group of people, whether it's 100 or 1,000, whatever. Oh, it's that wonderful give and take. And then we have to figure out how to do a show through a camera, and it's just me in a room by myself, no audience, because weirdly, most people would leave their camera off. So you would be performing for a screen full of black squares, and that's it. And then the extroverts got messed up because they're like, "They weren't giving me anything, I can't, It's like, "Yeah, because 'cause you're trying to take from your audience." Like, your job is to give everything that you've got. You're the source, you're the fountain, and give to them without expecting anything back, and that's how you have the best experiences. So, that's why introverts, we've got a special advantage because we don't need that validation from the audience, which is a big pitfall and
Mm.
trap that a lot of extroverts can spiral out if they don't have that from the audience.
Absolutely. And I want to get back to the technology side of it, with the benefits, but also the pitfalls that we have. But before we go there, I would like to take our audience through a journey, right? The public speaking. So, and again, some of our clients think, "Oh, I'm not a public speaker. I don't get on the stage. I'm not in front of a lot of people. I do meetings. That's what I do. I get in a room with five decision makers, and that's what I do. And most of the time, I do it online. So I want to get back to that. But I want to start with, what is the preparation? So before we get to that meeting, if it's a meeting, if it's a conference, before you get to that meeting, what do you do, or what you recommend people to do to prepare for that speaking part of it?
That is the question. What do you do to prepare? That's really the only question, which is it's a lot like thinking about a magic show. And it I know that's kind of a difficult thing for a lot of people to relate to because not a lot of people are magicians, but Welcome to Behind the Curtain of how a magician thinks about putting tricks together to make a show. Now, when the magician is coming up with a trick, like that's a thing that they do too. They can just come up with tricks. You have to start at the end, which is what effect do I want to demonstrate? Do I want them to think I could read minds? Do I want them to think that I can predict the future? Do I want them to think that I can saw somebody in half and put them back together again? What's the effect I want to have on the audience? So, what effect do you want to have on the audience as a speaker? What's the outcome? What's the reason for this meeting? What's the reason for this presentation? What's the ideal outcome? What do you want them to understand by the end of their time with you? Then you work yourself backwards from there because you might want this as the outcome, but there might be 5 people that you're talking to that all need a different way to get to that destination. The CEO wants to talk vision, big picture. Oh, we're the thought leaders in our industry, and that's what I care about. Then the marketing guy wants to know, well, are we showing up properly in the market? Are we talking to the correct avatars? Then the CFO is, this sounds really expensive, and I'm going to need to see some numbers.
Mhm.
Then the operations guy is going to be like, I don't even think we can handle this project. How are we going to get it done? We're already maxed out on bandwidth anyway. So you're trying to get multiple people to the same conclusion who all want their own questions answered, and you won't know what that is going in, but you should really think about it. So that's why the thing is, know thy audience. Know who you're talking to, know why they're showing up, why they're being why they're going to be in the room. Because as a performer, I always like to ask, what kind of event is this? Is this an awards banquet? Is this
Mhm.
a holiday party? Are they going to find out that they don't get a holiday bonus? Do they have to attend, or are they there on their own volition? Because all of that changes the mood of the audience, and I don't want to show up thinking that they're super happy and excited to be there because they bought tickets, but really the boss told them they have to be there or they're getting fired. Much much different. If you took a picture of both audiences, it's people in a room, but the reason why they're there matters a lot. So it really depends on who's going to be in the room, why they're going to be there, what they want to know from you, and what you want them to understand by the end of your time there. And then you can then go, okay, what stuff do I need to talk about in order to help them get there? What are the concepts? What are the ideas? How sophisticated from a problem awareness standpoint are they? Do they understand my world? Do they understand what I'm doing? Or is it completely foreign to them and that's why they're bringing me in? So, am I talking to a room full of experts and I can use lingo? Or am I talking to my mom and I need to use very casual language? All of that factors into how you're going to decide how to talk about your ideas and whatever it is else it is that you're there to talk about. So that's all part of the planning. And then you got to start putting everything together. So the way that I like to do it is I I mind map. So again, I'm a visual thinker. I do not think in bullet points and outline forms like at all. I think of this, which reminds me 11 things, and those 11 things remind me of 20 things each. And very soon you got this geometric expansion of distractions and be like, what am I going to talk about here? Because I got distracted. So I got to put all that onto a whiteboard. I use my computer and a program called Obsidian that lets me dump everything into an infinite canvas. And then I can start arranging ideas and go, oh, this idea goes with that one. So I'll put those near each other. So I just kind of start pushing the similar ideas into the same areas. Then I go, okay, this topic doesn't make sense until after I've explained these. Okay, so these have to go first, then second. All these ideas, do they come before, after the first idea? Do they come before, after the second idea? And then, okay, if it's after the first one, but before the second one, this is the new second one. So I just kind of compare each concept and then go, well, does it make sense for this one to go first or second? And then that's how the outline gets built. And then I go, there's the order of stuff I got to talk about. Okay, let's go. So that's kind of how I think about organizing information, what to cover. And I want to give myself enough time for my brain to come up with all the stuff that I could talk about. Because the hack is know what you're talking about. Like, it just that's the hack is, okay, if you really are a world-class expert and you could just speak about this extemporaneously, okay, cool, a little bit of preparation goes a long way. But sometimes you're asked to present things that you aren't a world-class expert on. If
Mhm.
you are a malpractice lawyer and you've got to know the names of the third phalange of the occipital, you're like, oh my goodness, what kind of, who made up these words, right? So there might be point of fact things that you've really got to practice until you get down cold, and then that's how you prepare for your presentation.
And that the practice part of it, Jonathan, is that because a lot of times we it makes sense in our head, right? I put the presentation together, especially, not saying anything again, but consultants are evolving around a lot of slides sometimes, slides with a lot of information. Because, for example, with my educational background, slides for us, when you go to a conference, when you're presenting, is the minimum amount of words, because you want the people to watch you speaking and not looking and reading your slides. Uh, but when you go in the consultant route, is the other way around. They need all the information there because the audience wants to see all the information, whether it's numbers, or a trajectory, a timeline. It needs to be on the slide. And then it might make sense in my head, but how do I make sure it makes sense as I speak in front of people? Because that is something that, especially when you talk about, if you go to a sales pitch or you have to present your idea, our professionals have a harder time selling, especially when you have to sell yourself. And we go into sales later, but how do I make sure that what I have in mind, what I have to say, comes out the way I plan in my mind? How do I make sure it happens in the meeting?
I remember the moment I asked that in debate class in ninth grade. How do I start? Like,
Sorry
how
for
do we do
making you
this?
go that far back. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm amazed I remember it. But Mr. Yetzi was the teacher, and he says, okay, imagine your job is to be a chauffeur and you gotta drop somebody off. What's the first thing you've got to do after you're in the car? You've got to drive to where they are, get
Mm,
them in the car, then you can drive them to the destination.
true.
So most people start where they are and then drive to the destination, forgetting they got to pick up their audience. So you've got to start by meeting them where your audience is. Have you ever? Does this sound familiar? Have you been dealing with X? It looks like this is the situation we're in, right? And everybody in the room goes, yeah, that is great. Now that we're all on the same page, we can go forward. because people don't want to be rude. They're not going to interrupt. They're not going to be like, what are
Mm,
you even talking about? I mean, sometimes they will, and that's fun because you find that out sooner rather than later. But it's very possible that you could spend 40 minutes talking, and then the most important person in the room goes, this isn't at all what I wanted that I thought this would be. You haven't talked about this, this, this,
mhm.
and those are the things that I needed to talk about to make a decision, and you just totally wasted my time. And then you're sunk. Good luck. You could have talked about that. So that's why personally, I like to prepare all that stuff. I like to know my stuff inside and out, practice it, having friends and colleagues, not family, because your family knows the day-to-day you,
Mhm.
and it's hard for them to separate the you from the professional version of you, right? So then they might be like, "Oh, that was much better than when your pants fell down in 7th grade." And you're just like, "We're not talking about that," right? So
Yeah.
it's really difficult to have family that you can practice with. So that's why it's important to practice with other speakers and other communicators
Mhm.
and have kind of like a mastermind group of folks so that you can go, "Hey, let me run this by you." So that's kind of on the presentation side.
Mhm.
But when you're actually in the room, I straight up take time to ask every single person, "So, what do you want out of your time here? What do you need me to cover so that you're like, yeah, okay, that was good. For you, it's that? Okay, cool. Yep. I'm going to hit that at about minute 4. You're going to be happy. How about you?" And they're like, "Oh, I want to see numbers." And they're like, I got plenty of numbers for you. I'll send them to you after we're done here. We can sit down and go over them. I basically want to talk about kind of what the numbers mean and what to do about it. But if you really want to sit down with the numbers, that takes a little bit longer than we've got to go over right now, but I'll absolutely get those to you right after the presentation, but we'll at least understand why we're talking about the numbers that we're talking about. And they go, "Yeah, sounds good. How about you?" So then that way, every single person in the room is telling you, "Here's how to change my mind. Here's how to help me say yes." That's really what they're doing. So then you go, "Okay, cool. Well, nobody mentioned slides 7 through 9, so I can skip those. Cool. Nobody cares about it. Easy. That'll give me more time to talk about what that guy wanted." So
Uh,
if you know your stuff inside and out, you can adjust on the fly a little bit based on what they want to cover.
that's what I was gonna say, because you need to have a very good level of confidence to be able to ask the question even before, right? Because for a lot of people, that would probably throw them off and ruin what they had in mind as they had planned in their head. Because, well, there's a famous saying from a famous former boxer. That's back in my day. I'm giving my age now, but he said everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. Then the plan
That's
goes out of the window. So correct me if
that's
I'm
it.
wrong, but you
That's
need to
it.
really know what you talk about, not just that knowledge that you have for yourself, but know how to present that. Because if any, and that was part of the next question I had, how to bounce back if you have a question during your presentation because you're so focused, right? You know your stuff, you focus, you delivering it, but then there's a question that you didn't plan on answering in that time. How do you make sure you can come back, and how do you get back on track after that?
That's a really good question, and that's kind of what you say, right? There are lots of ways to handle that, and a lot of it depends on what the question is and the intention behind the question, which goes back to as the presenter, it's kind of your job to set the boundaries of what we're here to talk about and not talk about.
Mm,
Because a lot of times people want to jump ahead, especially in a high pressure negotiation or a sales process. Then they're going to be like, okay, but what if at 6 months I don't like it? What then? And that's a legitimate question. but that's 6 months later, but it matters right now whether they're going to sign up or not.
Mhm.
But that's even farther because we haven't even talked pricing yet, right? So you got to balance it. So it's kind of like judo versus karate. A lot of folks want to karate chop the objection and just be like, "Well, that doesn't matter right now." And you're like, "Well, it does because it matters to me right now. So you can't do that." And you go, "That's a great question. So either you didn't prepare for it and you're sunk. Good luck." Right?
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
go, full transparency, that wasn't on my radar because I've prepared this. So if that's super important to you, I will absolutely get you the best answer after this time together. So if you want to hold off until I do find that answer, then cool. We can put a pin in this and I'll go get the answer and come back next week. Like it can be that important, right?
Mhm.
And then you're just like, fair enough. I need to go get that answer for you. So if you ever say, I don't know, the next words should be, and I'll go find out.
Mhm.
Right. Or if it's a, well, that doesn't matter right now because that concern doesn't even matter if this doesn't go the correct way. Right. So it's kind of like, listen, we're facing bankruptcy and what you're going to do with stock options or whatever distributions 3 years from now, well, we won't have any of those 3 years from now if we don't deal with this right now. So you can address it that way. Or you go, you know what? I love where you're coming from. That's actually exactly what I was going to talk about in 3 topics, but the answer doesn't really make sense until we work up on it. So if you would, we'll sneak up on it and then you'll be like, "Oh my goodness, that yeah, okay, I get it." So, yeah, I'm getting to it, I promise. So, if it's one of those, they're just kind of jumping ahead in the logic, but you have to build your case for it.
Mhm.
You don't have to skip ahead because if you skip ahead, you're now off the map. It just kind of like with a one flashlight, and then they're going to miss how you got there. And now they're confused because then they're going to be like, yeah, but what about this? And now you're working backwards to where you already were. So sometimes it makes more sense to go, we'll talk about that. I promise. That's 3 slides from now. And then they go, oh, okay, cool. But you could praise them and you're like, I love it. I wish more people got there as quick as you did, but we'll bring everybody along, right? Or whatever. So part of part of that ability to be in the moment comes from it's a spectrum of again, if you're a world-class expert and I'm just going to speak off the cuff, yeah, well, if you have $1 million on the line, do you really want to leave it up to I'm going to think about it in the moment and expect that to be my best way of explaining stuff? Probably not.
You know.
But the other end is, well, I've scripted this down to the last nth degree, every last pause, and I'm going to practice this like a robot. Well, that's too structured. So it's got to be somewhere in between. So this is just kind of the realm of ideas. And then this is carved in stone, too rigid. And then there's no flexibility. So in my head, the way I see it is a lot like Buckminster Fuller, the dude that came up with geodesic domes. So it's very lightweight framework that's very strong and can hold a lot of weight relative to its structure, right? So those are tensegrity structures. That's a whole other rabbit hole, which we're not going to go down. That's a distraction. Okay. But the idea is that the structure is held in place by rigid parts that resist compression.
Mhm.
Remember, you can't crush it, but it doesn't stretch out, right? So those two together hold it in tension, and that's how it maintains its structural integrity. So you know what ideas you need to talk about. Those aren't going to move. those you've absolutely got to cover these details by the end of this, or it's not successful. Then the tension is in maybe we could prioritize this one over that one. How much time are we going to spend on this? Well, he really cares more about this than I thought. So we're going to spend a little bit more time, which means we have less space for this. And it's all that kind of metacognition that the more practice you have, the more aware you'll be of being able to do that. Because as you're getting started, your mind is going to be so full of, wait, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to say it? My script. And there's not going to be a lot of room left for, how's this coming across? Am I losing that guy? Did I speak too fast for that person? Maybe. So it's just kind of, you got to put in the reps, really, and just do it as much as you can.
It comes to preparation, practice, and doing it over and over again, right? Especially if you know you're going, because I understand that sometimes we don't have the time frame to prepare for a specific meeting, but the more we practice, it doesn't matter which meeting we have, the preparation, the the fundamental of presenting will be already there because you've done it so many times, right? And then the topic,
Exactly.
obviously, we need to practice. But do you have any advice on, let's say, I get nervous before I go into a presentation? The first 5 minutes of the presentation is kind of blur in my mind afterwards. I don't remember if I said what I needed to say. It's kind of blank. Do you
Yeah.
have any strategies, any tips that you can give us to how to prepare before, right before that moment, to make sure it's about the nerves? Huh? How can we
Yep.
calm the nerves down before we go into it?
Yeah, that's a really good question too, and that's all about your autonomic nervous system. That's the process that lets you either freak out or fight or flee, right? So it's fight or flight mode.
Mm,
And then you get so amped up on adrenaline that you just kind of blur out. You're like, I don't remember what happened, officer. I'm sorry. So when you're in that moment right before you go out on stage, that's when you're going to be the most amped up. The only bridge that we have to calming that part of our mind down is having the presence of mind to control our breathing.
mm,
Your breath is the bridge because it's part of your autonomic nervous system. It runs on autopilot when you're asleep. It'd really be bad if we didn't breathe when we slept, right? So if our breath were only under our conscious control, we would never be able to fall asleep because we'd have to think, breathe in, breathe out the whole time. So we don't need to. So it runs on autopilot, but we can consciously take over and direct it. So that conscious taking over the breath is the only way that your mind can say, "Hey body, it's okay." So if you force your breath into a more calm pattern, it tells the freak out part of your body, "Well, the breathing is calming down. I should probably calm down."
mhm,
So the pattern that is taught for Navy SEALs and elite operators and military and state troopers and gymnasts and all that kind of stuff, it's called box breathing. And it's a slow in, count of 4, hold your breath for a count of 4, breathe out to a count of 4, then hold it to a count of 4, then breathe in. So you're just breathing in a box. So in, out, in. And then as you start to calm down, your count of 4 gets slower, so that
mhm.
time gets longer until you're calmed down. That's what I do right before going out for national television or even being on local news to promote a show or something, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'd rather be asleep, but here I am in front of bright lights and somebody who's way too chipper for this this early in the morning. Here we go. And I don't wanna be a sweaty mess. I don't wanna be hyperventilating. So right
Mhm.
before, That's it. That's it.
That's interesting. It puts a lot in perspective because a lot of times we just wanted to get it over with, and we kind of go in there, and the sooner and the faster I get into it, the sooner and faster it's over. But
Mhm.
then it will probably compromise the content that I'm
Yeah.
supposed to deliver, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, a lot of the concern comes from I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna flub. This isn't gonna go well. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, cool. That's the critic part of your brain trying to protect you. I get it. But also, your audience wants you to do well. If they bought a ticket to the show, do you think they want it to be awful? No. They want it to be really good. They want you to do well. They want you to be the best you possible. And if you're in a really tough negotiation, they want a successful resolution to this challenge. If they didn't, they wouldn't be in the meeting in the first place. So if they're in the room with you, they care enough to want you to do well. So they're rooting for you. They're on your side. They want you to be successful. They care more about you succeeding than you do. And you think you're, oh, I'm so in my head about it. Like, no, everybody wants this to go well. You do, they do. Everybody's on your side. You can calm down. It's all right.
It's happening. So we know the preparation, right? What we need to do before we get there. So now I want to switch to in that moment, in that meeting. And a lot of questions that I had, they're different questions, but they come to the same kind of the same topic. Number one, we we can put the best slides, we can put the best presentation there, but if I don't come across explaining or connecting the dots, right? It might be the differentiation between a winning case or a winning work to one that may not have the best slides. They might not be the most beautiful one, but that person had the delivery, right? The delivery was so well done that captivated our audience. Walk us through, Jonathan, if you could, is that it's not just how we speak, it's how we present ourselves, it's the presence. How can we make sure that that comes across when we're in front of an audience, whether it's in person or obviously because we do a lot of Zoom meetings and team meetings? How do I come across as the authority, as the expertise that I have to hold the room together and kind of differentiate me from others?
That's a really good question. And the the challenge is that that is such a small question with a huge answer,
Mm,
because that goes back to who's in the room and why. And that's also why being a content creator and being an owner of your own personal media company is so important, because if you expect them to know who you are and why you're an expert and you haven't created anything, if you haven't shared your ideas, now you're having to do all that in this one meeting, and that's really difficult.
mhm,
But if you are an industry expert on this topic and you're world class at it, and everybody who knows anything knows you're the most important person for this thing, then in this meeting, you have less of that heavy lifting to do because everybody there already understands that you're amazing at this, that you've got the authority, and it's probably in their best interest to pay attention. So, big picture, that's what a lot of marketing and media presence is all about, is so that in the presentation, you're not having to start from zero to do that, but you might have to.
mhm,
So, that means loving your topic. If this doesn't light you up, if you're not jazzed about it, why are you even talking about it? And you can see that from performers, speakers that have been doing this for 40 years and they're burned out and they hate it and they hate the audience, they hate themselves, they hate life on the road. And I'm here to walk through the steps to get a paycheck and then go drink in my room. You can feel that. And then you're just like, I don't like this. I don't I don't think that guy likes me or anybody really. So conviction and enthusiasm paired with knowledge and insight is the magic mixture. Because if you don't know anything about what you're talking about, you're going to get found out with the one question.
Hmm.
If you do know what you're talking about, but it doesn't light you up, then if you're not excited about it, why should I be excited about it? I don't I don't get it. Right? If you're not excited about the prospect of success, if you don't think there's a chance of us winning, how am I supposed to care more about this than you? And you're the expert here. So a lot of it is if you're so in your head, you forget to show that you love this, that this is the one thing that you think about more than anything else on planet Earth. Like, this is what keeps me up at night. And this is all I've thought about for 30 years. And people go, yeah, it looks like it. Like I'm fascinated.
Hmm.
So that's why sometimes like at conferences, you can see somebody talking about the development of tax code over the past 15 years and you're like, "Oh my god, this is going to be the most boring thing ever." And they hold your attention solid for 90 minutes and then they go, "Well, that's the end of my time. Good night." And you're just like, "Did I just think tax code was interesting? Oh my god, that's amazing." And it's
For the first
because
time.
for the first time in a wow, right? And it's because they love the topic so much and they find it fascinating and they want to share that fascination with you. That does a lot versus somebody who's famous on paper. You're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to buy a ticket to this conference just to hear that guy speak. And then they're just like, this is just another payday to me. I don't care who you are. I don't even know anything about your industry, but I'm here to share a couple anecdotes that never really happened. But this is what I say, and I'm going to go through the next. I'm bored. I'm checking my phone. Right.
Mm.
So a lot of it comes down to knowing what you're going to say so well that that frees up the what am I going to say part of your brain. And now I can spend it on engaging my audience in talking to you and not forgetting to look at people and, oh, you know that, right, Bob? Yep, you got it. Oh, and you too, Steve, right? So being able to remind people that, yeah, this is real time. It's not television. It's not Netflix. It's not pre recorded. I'm actually here presenting to you. This is a human to human kind of element, which as AI gets better and better, and deep fakes and Sora and all that stuff, human to human has always been ultra valuable. And it's going to be even more valuable as less and less internet based stuff has authority and legitimacy because the lies are indistinguishable from the truth. So I'm just going to have to ignore all of it. And if I wasn't in the room when it happened, anything could have happened. So that's why in my book, real time, in person, at least video stuff. I mean, deepfakes will get that good where
Mm.
I could be wearing who knows what, and this looks like real time, right? So it's going to be more and more important for in-person real-time presentation skills are only going to get more valuable as it's easier and easier to fake all the footage and everything.
Absolutely. And I don't know, it's a fun fact. And I just want to, I don't know if you've seen, but Channel 4 UK just released a video. It was 1 hour news outlet. And at the end of the hour, the anchor said, "I'm not real. I'm an AI, and it shows how much we can AI can fool you because you paid attention for an hour and didn't know. They're not going to do that again. They don't want to keep that into the network, but they just want to show how far we're getting there. So I tr- completely agree with you. The human interaction, that seeing you or answer your questions or being able to demonstrate that I'm there for you and I care that you on the other side. Which brings me to another point: is that a lot of our clients, a lot of professionals are now in front of the computer, and they
Mhm.
forget or they think is not as relevant to pay attention to how they are in front of the computer, how they're seated, how they're moving, because they're so focused on the topic that they forget that part of the interaction and the exchange comes from the body language, right? Do you have any advice for the people watching us on how to pay a little bit of attention on how they come across in the
For sure. Oh man, yeah. Like I want to write a whole book about this, a whole years long thing, because yeah, you're right. The medium is the message. And if you don't care enough to take care of the medium that you're communicating through, then I know that you don't really care about your message enough, because we are humans. We're going to judge a book by its cover. And this is all cover. All this is cover. It's all intentional. So, unfortunately, most people work on a laptop, use the built in camera, the built in microphone, and that's it. That's as far as it goes.
Mhm.
So, from the hardware side of things, okay, you're using a camera that is trying its best to maintain exposure. So, if you've got sunlight coming in bright 1 minute, it's going to have to close the aperture. And now you're going to look dark and it looks like you're in a witness protection plan. And then it gets dark and then it's going to brighten up, but then you're going to be blown out because it's too dark, right? So use a camera that can fix its exposure, but then you're going to be like, oh, but it's going to be dark. Okay, then get lighting. Get a ring light that provides the constant same light the whole time, so that the camera is not having to adjust the situation. Because if this camera was auto exposure and I put my hands up, that's a lot of white in front of back and it freaks it out. And then when I put them down, it freaks it out again. So set exposure, you set lighting, like down to I could turn off the lights and turn them back on. I've placed the camera a little bit above eye level so that my head tilts up, which is a flattering angle, right? Plus, it makes you feel like you're looking down on me a little bit, so you're in the position of authority, right?
a lot of
But
that. It's a lot of technicality that sometimes we don't think about, and
right.
and whether it's in person or on camera, because we tend to have, and I'm guilty myself. I had a presentation and I was going back and forth on my posture. So I was moving more than I thought I was because I'm so into the topic, and I do have passion for what I speak about. Uh, but sometimes I think I get too much involved, and my sports coaching background comes in, and I'm kind of moving up and down the line, as the game goes
Yep,
by. So how much it's good and how much is too much movement, if you could kind of guide us through that.
for sure. Intentional movement can be good. Unintentional movement is distracting.
Mm,
Again, Mr. Yetzi said, beware of excessive double handed gestures. If you
that's
see
interesting.
a lot of people on television who aren't used to being on TV just do double handed gestures the whole time, and everything they say, it's two hands the whole time. They might do this
I feel like I just did that, didn't I?
a little bit, right? But
Thank
that's
you for
that's
calling me
okay.
out, Jonathan.
So
Appreciate
you
it.
you mix it up, right? And
Okay.
also you think of a frame. You kind of stay here, but not out here. You can, but even I'm trying to track, like when I'm talking about this idea over here and this idea down here and these ideas over here, I'm trying to stay in the compositional space,
Mhm.
because if I'm over here, you have no idea what's going on, right? So I want to keep all the information within the frame, right? So then if I'm standing up and I'm nervous and I'm moving back and forth, it's a lot of noise that can distract from what I'm trying to communicate. So if it helps support the message, it's good. If it distracts your audience, it's bad. So if you just stood there like a robot the whole time, that lack of motion is distracting. So that's why it's not a always universal kind of thing, but it has to be done on purpose. That gesture on purpose.
Mhm.
So you can get as detailed as, okay, most of us read left to right. Current state is on the left because that's where we start. And then we read, and now we're over on the right. So if you are talking about the problem, if you're talking about the situation we're in right now, you do that on the audience's left. Then, as you start talking about the solution, but we can really, and then you move over to the other side, and now you're talking about possibility, the future, solutions, benefits, outcomes. This is so much better. It's all over there. And then somebody goes, well, what about this? And you go, good question. Walk back over to where you talk about problems and you go, see, that's actually a challenge because of these reasons and those reasons. And that's why I don't think that path would really change anything, because non-consciously you've anchored that part of the stage to this isn't going to work. So you can get that wild with movement and position and timing and intentionality along with question answering all comes together for being intentional about your movements, your position, and how you get there.
Wow, we can definitely be here for another at least an hour, because I also wanted to go into the persuasive aspect of speaking to a public, to an audience, right? But we're gonna have to leave that for the next one. But so bring it all together, Jonathan, because we have 2 minutes left, and I promised everyone I would do it in 1 hour. So now public speaking gave us a different perspective as we look at it. It doesn't matter how many people you're speaking to, if it's a room or three or a room with 1,000. There are fundamental aspects that we need to consider. And it's not just getting in front of the room and speaking. It's not just about the words coming out of your mouth. So we have, if correct if I'm wrong, I just want to summarize that we go from the preparation that it takes of knowing your topic, rehearsing your topic. So any questions that come in your way, you are not thrown off. Visualizing the sequence that you need to follow, but not in a way that is too strict that you cannot deviate from it, right? To the technique of the breathing technique to go into that presentation so you calm your nerves, to the point that you are enthusiastic about how you speak to your audience, to make sure you're present, to how much movement, your body language. If you're on camera, the level of the camera makes a difference. The lighting in your room makes a difference. To the, how you end, because the end of that meeting, it's gonna set us apart, right? So can we do that in 1 minute? How do we bring it all together? And at the end, we make sure that we landed the best presentation we could.
That's right. Understand who's going to be in the room, why they're going to be there, what do they want out of their time there, what do you want out of your time there, and then how are you going to present things to help all that happen? That's the lens. And then like the study of the colonoscopies, right? It doesn't matter how long it goes, the procedure goes, it's how it starts and how it ends is how we're going to remember the experience. So if you can stick the landing, then that's good. And that's why your call to action, your invitation to continue the conversation is always a good way to end it.
I appreciate it. Look at us, right on the dot, Jonathan. I really, really appreciate you joining us. Uh, those watching us and those that are going to watch us later, Jonathan, as I said in the beginning, is one of the instructors at Peak Leap. He conducts the workshops in our accelerator program. There's a lot more that we cover. That this is just scratching the surface. And every time we do, every workshop we do with frameworks, and people interact. So people are asking Jonathan the question, but it also leaves with things that they need to do in order to progress. So there are frameworks, there are systems that we use. So if you have questions about the program, please reach out. I'll be happy to walk you through. It's a comprehensive behavior change program that we have that will help you develop your business development and your commercial leadership aspects, and will get you to the next level. So I'm here for you if you need more information. But for now, thank you for joining. Jonathan, thank you once again. And I'll see you guys later.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. Bye.